It was 6:42 a.m. when I stepped into our bedroom and found Lucas shoving clothes into a duffel bag like the house was on fire. No explanation, no eye contact, just frantic, jerky movements as if I didn't exist. "What are you doing?" My voice cracked, but he didn't slow down. "Doing what I should have done years ago," he muttered, not even glancing my way. 24 years of marriage, and this was how it ended, him cramming shirts into a bag while I stood there in my robe blindsided. "Lucas, stop," I grabbed his arm, but he shook me off like I was a stranger. He finally looked at me, and what I saw hollowed me out. No guilt, no sadness, no love, just cold resolve. "I'm leaving Ava, today." I didn't even have time to process before he added, "Transfer my half of the savings into my account." Half my heart pounded. That money wasn't just savings. It was Olivia's college fund. 12 years of scrimping, saving, sacrificing gone. I bolted for the laptop. My hands shook as the screen loaded. Numbers didn't lie. The checking account barely enough for groceries. The savings zero. Olivia's college fund also zero. The numbers glared back at me from the laptop screen, each zero like a punch to the gut. I refreshed the page, praying it was some kind of glitch, but nothing changed. Our checking account, $241 savings gone. Olivia's college fund, 12 years of careful deposits, birthday checks from grandparents, extra shifts at the bookstore, all wiped clean. "No," I whispered, my throat tightening. "No, no, no." My chest burned as I scrolled through the transaction history. 3 days ago, while I'd been at my community volunteer meeting, Lucas had transferred every cent to his personal account. Not just his half, everything. Every drop of security we'd built for our daughter's future. Behind me, I heard the soft clink of a spoon against a cereal bowl. I turned to see Olivia sitting at the kitchen counter in her plaid school uniform, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her hazel eyes studied me, a crease of concern forming between her brows. "Mom, what's wrong?" I swallowed hard. The truth clawed at my throat, but the instinct to protect her was stronger. "Nothing, sweetheart. Dad's just going on a trip." The lie tasted metallic bitter. Lucas's heavy footsteps thudded on the stairs. He appeared, dragging the duffel behind him. He didn't slow, didn't speak, didn't even look at us. He walked straight to the front door. "That's it." My voice was sharper than I expected. 24 years and you just walk out. His hand froze on the doorknob. "I left you a voicemail explaining everything." "I don't want a voicemail," I shot back. "I want you to look at your daughter and explain why you're abandoning her." Olivia didn't cry, didn't beg. She just watched him, her face unreadable. "You'll understand when you're older," Lucas told her. Then to me, "Don't make this harder than it has to be." The door closed with a soft click that somehow felt louder than any slam. The silence that followed was deafening. The refrigerator hummed, the coffee maker gurgled. Outside, the sound of his car starting was the final punctuation. "Is he coming back?" Olivia's voice was quiet but steady. I wanted to tell her he just needed time, that this wasn't forever. But one look at her told me she already knew the answer. "I don't think so, baby." She nodded slowly, processing. "Did he take our money?" My stomach twisted. Some of it I hedged. "My college fund too." I couldn't speak. I just nodded. Olivia rinsed her cereal bowl, dried it, and slid it into the cabinet. Then she turned to me with an expression I'd never seen before, calm, certain, almost satisfied. "Mom, don't worry, I handled it." It was such an absurd statement, so out of place that for a second I thought she was joking. But there was no hint of bravado in her voice, no trace of a smile, just quiet confidence. "What do you mean, handled it?" "I'll miss my bus if I don't leave now," she said, grabbing her backpack. "We'll talk after school, okay?" And just like that, she was gone. That day felt endless. Every corner of the house carried his absence. His coffee mug still sat in the dishwasher, his jacket still hung by the door. I moved through the rooms like a ghost folding laundry he'd left behind, my mind spinning with questions. But Olivia seemed untouched by it all. That evening, she came home from school exactly at 3:15, did her homework at the kitchen table, and asked what was for dinner. Not a single word about her father. It was the same the next day, and the day after that. By the fourth night, I noticed something strange. After dinner, she disappeared to her room, and I could hear rapid typing through the thin walls. At first, I assumed she was messaging friends, but the rhythm was too steady, too deliberate. That Friday, while putting away her clean laundry, I spotted a sheet of paper sticking out from under her science textbook. The formatting caught my eye, an email printout. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. At the top, from Lucas Patterson to Rebecca Cole. My pulse kicked into overdrive. The emails were from 3 weeks before Lucas left, arranging hotel reservations, planning the transition, and most chillingly discussing how to handle Ava when the time came. Mom? I nearly jumped out of my skin. Olivia stood in the doorway holding her empty dinner plate. Where did you get this? My voice was barely above a whisper. She stepped in, closed the door, and set her plate down on her desk. Dad's not good with passwords. How long have you known about her? 6 weeks. About the money, the day before he left. My head spun. Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to be sure, and I wanted to figure out what to do about it. Sweetheart, this isn't your responsibility. Yes, it is. Her voice was firm. He stole from me. He lied to both of us. Someone had to do something. Olivia knelt beside her bed and pulled out a spiral notebook. She handed it to me. The pages were filled with diagrams, printed screenshots, financial records, meticulous documentation of her father's activities. This is, incredible, I managed, and terrifying. I learned most of it online, she said, matter-of-factly. You'd be surprised what people leave unprotected. I stared at my daughter, the same girl who still left socks on the living room floor, realizing she'd been quietly investigating her own father while I'd been clinging to the belief our marriage could be saved. And in that moment, I understood the turning point wasn't Lucas walking out. It was Olivia deciding she wasn't going to let him win. The next morning, I found Olivia in the kitchen before school, pouring herself a glass of orange juice like it was any other day. Sunlight streamed through the window, catching the edges of her ponytail, but there was something in her eyes, an alertness, that didn't belong on a 12-year-old's face. Sleep okay? I asked. Fine, she said, wiping a small drop of juice from her lip. You? I wanted to tell her I'd been awake half the night, replaying our conversation, trying to make sense of the notebook she'd shown me. Instead, I nodded, forcing a smile. She grabbed her backpack, kissed my cheek, and was gone. After dropping my coffee mug in the sink, I went upstairs to make the bed. That's when I noticed her bedroom door was slightly ajar. Her laptop sat open on the desk screen, black. I hesitated, then tapped the trackpad. The screen lit up to an email draft addressed to a bank's fraud department. My stomach lurched. The subject line read, "Urgent identity theft and unauthorized transactions." Before I could read more, I heard the bus outside. She must have forgotten to close it. I spent the day on autopilot at work, shelving books, greeting patrons, but my mind kept circling back to what Olivia might be doing. Was she really contacting banks? Could she even do that legally? At 4:10 p.m., she came through the door, a faint flush on her cheeks. Homework first, then dinner, I said, trying to sound casual. Already done, she replied, heading to her room. Minutes later, the soft, rhythmic clicking began again. By the third night, my curiosity got the better of me. I knocked and stepped into her room with a plate of cookies. She angled her laptop slightly away from me, but I caught a glimpse, rows of spreadsheets each with headings like wire transfers, asset holdings, and account aliases. What are you working on? I asked. History project, she said, without missing a beat. Her tone was smooth, but the faint twitch at the corner of her mouth told me she knew I didn't believe her. Saturday morning, I decided I couldn't just hover and wonder anymore. I brewed coffee, carried it to her room, and said, "We need to talk." Without looking away from her screen, she said, "I know." Then she clicked a folder titled Countermeasures. One by one, she opened files, screenshots of emails between Lucas and Rebecca discussing offshore accounts, scans of loan applications forged in my name, records showing they'd used Olivia's social security number to secure a $200 trillion mortgage for a house in Florida. I felt my knees weaken. How did you... Dad uses the same password for everything, she said. Birth year and initials. It's not hard once you know where to look. That's Olivia. This is hacking. It's Illegal, so is what he did to us. Her voice was calm, even detached. She explained how she'd gained access to their devices, installed monitoring software, and tracked their communications for weeks. They were days away from finalizing the purchase, she said, flipping to another document. But I filed fraud alerts with the credit bureaus, froze the accounts, and sent the bank everything they needed to deny the loan. I blinked at her. You stopped the sale, yes. And that's not all. She clicked to a set of scanned invoices. Rebecca's been stealing from her clients at the investment firm. Fake billing, false account statements, everything. I packaged the evidence and sent it anonymously to her boss. My mouth fell open when, 3 days ago, she was escorted out yesterday. I struggled to process the speed and precision of it all. Sweetheart, you have to be careful. People like them. Don't care who they hurt, I know. Her certainty scared me almost as much as her skill. That afternoon, as I was making dinner, my phone rang. Lucas's name lit up the screen. I hesitated, then answered. Hello? Ava, he said, his voice tight. We need to talk. Something's wrong. My accounts are frozen, the bank's calling about suspicious activity, and Rebecca just lost her job over some bogus embezzlement claim. I glanced toward the hallway. Olivia stood there silent, holding a glass of water. Her gaze locked on me. She shook her head ever so slightly. Lucas's words tumbled out. Someone's targeting us. Whoever it is, they're in my email, my social media. They're posting private messages. I think it's someone from Rebecca's office, but he stopped abruptly. Wait, something just popped up. Did you... What I asked. There's a beep. My inbox is opening, closing. Ava, someone is in my account right now. I looked at Olivia. Her fingers were flying over her laptop keyboard, the glow of multiple windows reflecting in her eyes. Lucas's voice rose. Emails are being sent to my boss. Ava, this is serious. If you hired someone, tell me now so I can make it stop. I didn't hire anyone, I said truthfully. Then who the hell? Olivia stepped forward, took the phone from my hand and said, Hi, Dad. There was a pause. Olivia, sweetheart. Thank God. Listen, I'm in trouble. Someone's making me look like a criminal, she cut in. You don't have to be made to look like one. You are one. You took $75,000 from my college fund. You forged loan documents in my name. You tried to disappear and leave Mum and me with your debt. His voice cracked. Where are you getting this? Who's feeding you lies? No one. I've been watching you. Her tone was ice. And Rebecca. I know everything. Silence stretched between them, broken only by his uneven breathing. Olivia, I'm still your father. I love you. You loved what I could give you, my future, my credit, my trust, and you used it. Actions have consequences, Dad. Remember that when you're sleeping in your car. She hung up, set the phone on the counter, and returned to her laptop as if nothing had happened. I stood there, heart pounding, realizing that whatever storm had just been unleashed, my daughter was at its center and fully in control. For the rest of that evening, I moved through the house like I was underwater. The sound of Olivia's keyboard clicks drifted from her room, steady, measured, unstoppable. I tried to focus on dinner, but my hands trembled every time I replayed the way she'd spoken to Lucas, calm, factual, and utterly unafraid. When I peeked into her room later, she wasn't working on spreadsheets. Instead, she had a blank document open with the title, Digital Safety for Families. She was typing bullet points about recognizing forged documents, protecting social security numbers, and spotting suspicious financial activity. What's this? I asked. A guide, she said, without looking up, for kids whose parents might be stealing from them, and for adults who don't know how to catch it before it's too late. There was no bitterness in her tone, just purpose. That was the first shift I noticed in her. She wasn't simply fighting for us anymore. She was thinking about other people, other families who might be in danger. Still, I couldn't shake the knot of unease in my chest. Sweetheart, don't you think you should take a break? You've been at this for weeks. She shrugged. Dad didn't take a break while he was stealing from us. The next day, I called our pediatrician. By the end of the week, we were sitting in Dr. Patricia Reeves's softly lit office. Olivia treated the session like a board meeting. She laid out the timeline of events, discovering Lucas's affair, tracing the money-collecting evidence, and dismantling his and Rebecca's plans without a flicker of emotion. How did that make you feel? Dr. Reeves asked. Satisfied, Olivia said instantly. He stole from me, so I made sure there were consequences. Dr. Reeves glanced at me. I could see the question in her eyes. Are you okay with this? After the session, while Olivia waited in the lobby, the psychologist spoke to me privately. Your daughter has remarkable cognitive abilities and emotional resilience. This is her way of processing betrayal by taking control. It's not typical, but it's functional. The question is whether you're comfortable with the person she's becoming. That night I found Olivia working again, but this time she had tabs open for legal aid services, spreadsheets tracking our household budget, and a folder titled Divorce Preparation. You need to file, she said without preamble. The longer you wait, the more time he has to hide assets or create more debt in your name. Olivia, that's grown-up stuff, someone has to handle it. Her eyes were steady, and for the first time I realized she wasn't just reacting to what Lucas had done. She was building a system to make sure it could never happen again. Weeks passed. She started helping friends of friends whose families had been victims of similar financial betrayals. She'd walk them through securing their accounts, freezing credit, and filing reports. Sometimes I'd hear her on video calls telling teenagers, "This isn't your fault, but you can protect yourself." That was when my perspective began to change. At first, I'd seen her as a child caught in a mess she didn't deserve. But now I saw her as someone who had taken that mess, dissected it, and turned it into a weapon for good. And maybe she was teaching me how to do the same. I stopped crying into my pillow at night. I started following her checklist, new passwords, two-factor authentication, reviewing every line of every bank statement. I even began helping her fact-check the guide she was writing. It wasn't lost on me that my 12-year-old was pulling me out of the fog I'd been living in since Lucas left. She had shifted from avenger to protector, from protector to teacher. And I was learning about digital security, about resilience, about how refusing to be a victim changes everything. One evening, she asked me, "Mum, are you ashamed of what I did to Dad?" The question caught me off guard. Ashamed, no. You saved us. I just worry about what it cost you. She leaned against me, her voice softer than I'd heard in weeks. It cost me thinking he was a good person, but I'd rather know the truth than believe a lie. That was the second shift. She had no interest in pretending anymore, no longing for reconciliation, no illusions about the man Lucas had been. And that's when I realized something had changed in me too. I no longer wanted him back, not even a little. I wanted the life Olivia and I were building, one where we understood exactly what we had, what we needed to protect, and what we were capable of when someone tried to take it away. 2 months after Lucas walked out, Olivia came home from school with a look I'd learned to recognize, half excitement, half strategy. She dropped her backpack at the kitchen table and slid her laptop toward me. "Read this," she said. It was an email from a technology company called Safe Haven Systems. Somehow they'd traced the anonymous whistleblower who'd taken down Rebecca Cole's embezzlement scheme back to Olivia, though not to her age. They thought she was a seasoned cybersecurity professional. "They want me in their youth development program," Olivia explained. "Full scholarship to any college I choose, guaranteed job after graduation, starting salary $120,000 a year." I stared at the screen. This could set you up for life. "I know," she said and closed the laptop. "Wait, why aren't you screaming and dancing right now?" "Because they want to own everything I create. They'd make money off people's fear instead of actually protecting them. I'm not interested in that." I blinked. "Then what are you interested in?" She reached into her backpack and pulled out a small stack of business cards. E. Patterson, Family Financial Protection Consultant, professional logo, crisp design. "I already have clients," she said matter-of-factly. 6 families pay me $75 an hour to help them secure their accounts and recover stolen money. Last week, I helped a family in Ohio get back $30,000 their son took from his grandmother's retirement fund. I almost laughed from disbelief. "You're 12, Olivia." "Online, I'm a cybersecurity consultant. Nobody asks my age when I solve their problem." She opened a spreadsheet showing her earnings. "I've already replaced 1/3 of my college fund." That was the opportunity she cared about, not a corporate job with strings attached, but the freedom to work on her own terms. A week later, she was invited to speak virtually at a cybersecurity conference. She appeared as E. Patterson via encrypted video, her camera angled to show only her silhouette. She spoke for 30 minutes about protecting family assets from internal threats using anonymized examples from her own experience. The chat exploded with questions. That night over dinner, she told me, "I think I can turn this into a non-profit when I'm 18. Free protection services for families who can't afford private consultants." It hit me then Lucas's betrayal had given her a mission. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about creating something lasting. By spring, her reach had grown. She'd built a library of free resources, security checklists, fraud warning signs, step-by-step guides for reporting theft. She released them under Creative Commons licenses so anyone could share them. One afternoon, I walked past her room and heard her on a video call. "I know it's scary finding out your mum used your college fund," she was saying to someone, "but you're going to be okay. I'll help you secure what's left and make sure it can't happen again." She wasn't just offering technical advice, she was giving people the thing she'd given me: control when everything felt stolen. The final piece fell into place when a reporter from a national news outlet called the library asking about the anonymous whistleblower in the Rebecca Cole case. I told them I didn't know who it was. Later, I mentioned it to Olivia. She didn't look up from her math homework. "They'll never find me, and the more coverage the case gets, the more victims will come forward." That night, I realized the opportunity she'd found wasn't just for herself. It was for everyone who'd ever been betrayed by someone they trusted. Lucas had stolen her future. She'd taken it back, and now she was using it to protect futures that didn't even belong to her. By early summer, the transformation in Olivia was impossible to miss. She still looked like a typical middle schooler in jeans and sneakers, but the way she carried herself, the way she spoke, was nothing like the child who'd eaten cereal at our kitchen counter the morning Lucas left. Her confidence wasn't loud, it was precise. When she explained something, every word had purpose. When she took action, she already knew the outcome. One evening, we were folding laundry together when she said, "Mum, you need to change the beneficiary information on your life insurance policy. If Dad is still listed, he could contest it in court." I stared at her. "How do you even know that's possible? I read case law about it last week." She folded a towel with sharp edges. "It happens more often than you'd think." It wasn't just her knowledge that had grown, it was her sense of responsibility. She'd taken over organizing our household finances, built a legal resources folder for the divorce, and even created a calendar of court deadlines. But her growth went beyond logistics. She'd started mentoring other kids who'd been through similar betrayals, holding weekly group calls on a secure server she managed herself. I overheard snippets sometimes. "You're not weak for being hurt. You're strong because you're still here." The best way to keep them from taking more is to know exactly where everything is and lock it down. Listening to her, I realized she wasn't just processing her own trauma, she was turning it into a roadmap for others. One afternoon, she came into the living room carrying a small box. Inside was the stuffed elephant she'd slept with every night since she was 3. "I don't need this anymore," she said, "but I want to keep it somewhere safe so when I have my own place, it can be there." It was a small moment, but it hit me hard. She wasn't clinging to comfort objects. She was planning her future. Dr. Reeves noticed the change too. At our next session, she told me Olivia has integrated what happened into her identity in a way that empowers her. That's rare, especially for someone her age. I still worried, not because she was incapable, but because the maturity she carried came with a cost. She'd skipped over parts of childhood most people take for granted. One night I told her as much. "You've taken on so much, Olivia. I don't want you to miss out on just being a kid." She tilted her head. "Being a kid is trusting that someone else will protect you. I learned that's not always safe. I like who I am now, Mom. I like knowing I can handle things." It wasn't defiance, it was truth. In July, she surprised me again. "I've been thinking," she said at breakfast, "about offering free workshops at the community centre. Basic cybersecurity for families. no charge. I raised an eyebrow. You're already consulting. Why do this for free? Because not everyone can afford me, she said simply. And protecting people isn't about profit, it's about preventing damage before it happens. We arranged the first session for late July. 20 people showed up. Olivia stood at the front of the room in her favourite hoodie, speaking with a quiet authority that made every adult in the room listen. She broke down password security, explained phishing scams, and answered every question without a trace of hesitation. Afterward, a mother with tears in her eyes hugged me. "Your daughter just saved my family thousands of dollars," she whispered. "My husband's been hiding debt, and now I know how to stop it from getting worse." I drove home that night realizing Olivia's growth wasn't just in skill or knowledge, it was in purpose. She wasn't driven by anger anymore. She was driven by the belief that she could make a difference. Lucas had taken her trust and shattered it. But from those shards, she'd built something stronger, a version of herself that wasn't afraid of what people could do to her, because she knew exactly how to fight back. By the time autumn rolled in, our lives had settled into a rhythm that felt nothing like the one we'd had before, but in many ways it was better. There was no waiting for a door to slam or a lie to slip through the cracks. Every choice we made now was deliberate, every step forward, grounded in truth. Olivia's consulting business had doubled in size. She still kept her identity hidden, but her reach had spread far beyond our city. Families from across the country sought her advice, and she filtered her cases carefully, taking on only those where she could make a real impact. One crisp October afternoon, we sat together on the porch sipping hot cider. She was flipping through her notebook now, more of a thick binder packed with case notes, checklists and diagrams. "Do you ever think about Dad?" I asked. She looked out at the orange and gold leaves drifting down. "Sometimes. Not in the way I used to, though. I don't wish he'd come back. I just hope he doesn't hurt anyone else." It struck me then her victory over him wasn't about destroying him. It was about removing his power over her, over me, over our future. A week later, Olivia gave a virtual presentation at a national cyber ethics conference. Her segment was titled "Guarding the Home Front: How Families Can Protect Themselves from Internal Threats." She ended with a single line that made my throat tighten. "Sometimes the person you need protection from is the one you trusted most. That's not the end of your story, it's the start of you writing your own." Emails poured in afterward. People weren't just impressed, they were moved. At home, we celebrated with pizza on the couch. Olivia curled up with her laptop reading messages from teenagers who'd found the courage to confront financial abuse in their own families. "See this one?" she said, turning the screen toward me. Her uncle was using her identity to open credit cards. She stopped it before he could do real damage. Every message felt like proof. What Lucas had done to us wasn't just a tragedy, it was the catalyst for something bigger, something unstoppable. One Saturday morning while we were grocery shopping, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from the local news. Rebecca Cole had been sentenced to 8 years in federal prison for fraud and embezzlement. Lucas wasn't named, but I knew the investigation had closed in around him. He was living out of state now, working under the table, unable to pass a background check. When I told Olivia, she didn't gloat. She simply said, "Good, that's justice." It was then I realized she'd moved beyond revenge entirely. Her focus was forward, not backward. That winter, she asked me to help her form a small non-profit, just the two of us to start. We filed the paperwork calling it Second Lock. The name was hers, inspired by the idea that everyone should have more than one layer of protection. The first family we helped through Second Lock was a single mother whose ex-husband had drained their joint account. Sitting at our dining table, Olivia walked her through each step to secure her finances, file police reports, and rebuild her credit. By the end, the woman's shoulders had eased and there was a spark of hope in her eyes. "Thank you," she told Olivia. "I feel like I can breathe again." Olivia just nodded as if she'd heard it 100 times. One night as I was closing up the kitchen, she lingered at the doorway. "Mom, Do you think what happened to us made me better or worse? I thought about it, about the loss, the betrayal, the fear, and about the confidence, the skill, the empathy she now carried. I think it made you more, I said, more aware, more capable, more determined. You took something meant to break you and used it to build something no one can take away. Her smile was small but real. In the quiet that followed, I knew that no matter where life took her, college running second lock full time, or something we couldn't even imagine, she'd never be powerless again. And neither would I. Trust is precious, but it is not a guarantee. When betrayal comes from the people you expect to protect you, the pain can feel paralyzing. Yet Olivia's story proves that strength isn't about avoiding hardship, it's about what you do once it finds you. She could have been a victim letting her father's choices define her future. Instead, she turned her fear into fuel, her anger into action, and her loss into a mission that now protects countless others. The most important lesson: awareness and preparation are powerful shields. Whether it's a relationship, a business, or a family, protecting what matters isn't paranoia, it's responsibility. Olivia didn't wait for someone else to rescue her. She became her own first responder. And in doing so, she discovered a resilience she and I never knew she had. Sometimes the greatest justice is not revenge, but ensuring no one else can be hurt in the same way. You don't need to be a cybersecurity expert to protect yourself from financial betrayal. Start with these simple steps. 1. Secure your accounts. Use unique, complex passwords and enable two-factor authentication. 2. Monitor regularly. Check bank and credit card statements every week, not just monthly. 3. Freeze your credit. This prevents unauthorized loans or credit cards in your name. 4. Document everything. Keep records of suspicious activity. Evidence is your strongest ally. 5. Educate yourself. Learn the basics of fraud prevention and share them with your family. Olivia's path was extraordinary, but the principles she used are for everyone. Protecting your future starts with knowing where you're vulnerable and locking it down before someone else exploits it.